This particular episode is mainly for people who have daughters. I'm titling this Dying for Money, Spiritual Lessons from the Brooke George Situation. And I'm going to try to be very sensitive, but this video might be offensive to some people because Miss George is now facing the death penalty in Dubai. And some people might feel like that's unfair, and it is if she were defending herself, and in the process of defending herself, she ended up ending the life of someone who was trying to hurt her. But there are some life lessons here, and sometimes we have to learn the absolute hardest way that when you do certain things and you put yourself in a higher position or more at risk position or situation to be hurt, it's going to happen. So I just want to talk to people who have daughters. I have a daughter. I'm a firstborn. My mother had 4 daughters. And I work with girls, and I'm concerned about what I see happening with some of our young women. So we're going to get into it. And before we do, let's talk about a little bit about the story. So if you're not familiar, you can Google it. Brooke George is in her early 20s. She is a native of the UK somewhere. She met a guy online who was an expat of her country, and she ends up going to Dubai to meet him. So I think they meet online. They have a good time. The first trip she goes over there, it seems like everything is going well, and she decides to take a second trip. But according to her, this was her POV, her side of the story, the man became abusive and he tried to assault her. And when she fought back, she ended up getting a butcher knife and killing him. Because she is in Dubai, she can face the death penalty by firing squad. There are people trying to, they took her passport from her. I think she had to have a strip search. And she's over there and she cannot come back to her country because if she is found guilty of a crime, she's going to be executed. This is a very tragic situation. It's not the first time something like this has happened. But there are other times when people go over there, they go to another country, they break a law, the laws are different from the United States. You may not get the same due process, you may not get the same kind of allowances and considerations that you would get maybe in the US. And also there are women who are going overseas and they're becoming unalived because they're engaging in very dangerous practices of meeting men who are looking for a certain type of deviant activity in the bedroom. So I'm trying to be very careful how I say this. And so we have to teach our daughters. We've got to teach them how to make better decisions and why they need to make these better decisions. And we have to also talk about money. Some kind of way we got to learn that it's not worth doing everything for money. You know, money comes and money goes. And actually, it is better to make your money in a way, just believe it or not, getting a career and making your money and having integrity. You can sleep better at night. You're going to reduce your chances of getting a sexually transmitted disease. You're going to reduce your chances of being depressed because when you engage in darkness and perversion, you have to deal with that spiritually. And that can be haunting. And that's why some people are dealing with so much depression and these different kinds of thoughts that can cause them to no longer be here with us. So I want to talk about this as a life lesson, some life lessons that we can learn to teach girls in particular, even though this happens to males too. But let's talk about what we need to be teaching our girls and why. Well, thank you so much for joining Bad Thought Therapy. I'm Cherie Hardy. I hope you and your family are well. I really appreciate you listening and learning with me. Let's keep going. As humans, we are not beamed out of the sky. The way that God made things, He had a very simple system. We are created through a man and a woman coming together, male and female coming together. And actually, we need a mother and father to teach us wisdom. Wisdom is not something you automatically get or you know. You have to be taught wisdom. And that's why God intended in his original blueprint for life is for us to have wise parents. Well, that doesn't always happen for whatever the reason. And back in the day, we also had the extended family, and we had also the village, or so to speak, the community, where older people in the community would teach us wisdom. People in our neighborhoods, people in churches, our teachers in schools, they were teaching us wisdom. They were teaching us what was right and what was wrong, what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And in some cases, they would teach us why. But I kind of grew up where they told you what was wrong, but they didn't really explain it. And that's what I want to encourage people to do. If you're working with children, you have to help them understand the consequences of their actions. It's one thing to tell them that, this is not right, this is wrong. A lot of what I learned was religious based, and it worked for me. I did have the fear of the Lord in me, and it worked for me, and I believed in heaven and hell, and I believed if I did good, God saw it. If I did evil, he saw it. That worked for me. But this generation is different. I think it's important to teach children to understand their own human development. So you probably already know this. Science has, in the last maybe 25, 30 years, there have been a lot more studies about the human brain. And what they've discovered is that the human brain is not fully developed until we're in our mid to late 20s. Particularly the part of the brain that deals with decision making is usually the last part of the brain to be developed. And this came about because scientists were trying to figure out, why do young people make very foolish and thoughtless, careless, why do they make decisions to engage in things that are very risky? They risk their lives at a higher rate when we're younger, especially when you're in a group. So they wanted to know about that, and they started to study the brain, and that's when they discovered that the brain is not fully developed until mid to late 20s. This can definitely be a reason why so many young people are out just doing foolish things, and they're not really thinking about the consequences, because reality is they don't fully have the cognitive ability to understand, if I do this, they may know it's wrong, or they may have an idea about the consequences, but they may not know in depth and the range of consequences that come when you do foolish things, when you don't think things through, when you make a decision just based on emotion or impulse or feeling, when you need to be making cerebral decisions. In an ideal situation, a parent would help you work through that. And I'm here to tell you, even as a parent, even as a teacher, you can tell people what's right and wrong. They still may make their own decisions and do something that you have not taught or they have not seen you do. But you really reduce the chances of that happening. But you want to make sure that even if they go astray, you give them a strong foundation in what is right and wrong, and help them to understand the consequences that they will face if they make the wrong decision. I've talked about this quite a bit. Teaching and telling are two different things. You can tell children something, but you also want to teach them, and you teach them by fully explaining things, and also, this is critical, modeling things. You want to model what you want your children to do. If you haven't done it, it's very hard for them to have a model that they can trust. But if you do whatever you're telling your kids to do and it's righteous, they will likely follow. Of course, they're going to have their own unique identity. They've got their own personality. They've got a little bit of you. They've got a little bit of their dad. They got a little bit of God. They make their this unique person. And we know that there are 8 billion people on the planet and no one is the same. But you want to teach them that they have to listen to you because their brains are not fully developed. I see, I've heard, a lot of young people in their 20s, early 20s, some mid 20s, and there are older people on the internet, and basically they're selling their bodies. They're on the internet, and all they are showing are their bodies. It's for sale. They know that if they go online and they're not dressed fully, they're scantily or cladly dressed, they know that people are going to look at their bodies. And they know that some people are willing to have experiences with them, and if they're willing to accept the money, they're willing to pay. And that is the reality. In other words, we have prostitution in plain sight. Instagram allows it, TikTok allows it. They allow it because that's what it is. That's, and some people could even say it's a level of pornography because you've got these people with no clothes on, and anybody has access to it. Even young children have access to it. Some people even have their children involved, which is really shameful and scary, and it's heartbreaking because once everybody grows up and they get beyond that phase and they start to really think about what has happened, I can imagine there's going to have to be a lot of therapy, and there'll probably be some people trying to numb themselves from the regret of doing that. We have to teach our children that's what's happening. And do they want to live their life as a prostitute, or do they want to live their lives as professionals? We have to just teach children that it's far easier to go to school and become a professional, dentist, lawyer, doctor, teacher, accountant. There's so many wonderful things a person can do. It is far easier to live that life than to live the life of a prostitute, because there's so many risks, so many dangers with that life. And I want to talk about some of them, and you need to teach these to your children. And number one, I understand you have to teach children about attention, because this is something that I had to learn myself. One thing about being a teacher, it helped me to understand my own evolution as a human being, because I'm working with young people every day, and I was constantly thinking about myself as a young person and trying to understand, why I made certain decisions that I made, good and bad and different, and how I became who I am today in spite of some challenges that I faced. What I understand now more than ever is that attention is a need. All children need to be affirmed so that they can be self-confident, so that they can accept their own uniqueness, so that they can love themselves in spite of people telling them maybe something else, that they're not as good as, or they're less than, or whatever the case may be. You need attention, and you're supposed to get it from your parents. Unfortunately, many people don't. They don't get the healthy attention and nurturing that they need to be confident in themselves, to be to know that they're okay in their own uniqueness, that they don't have to look like anybody else, they don't have to do what anybody else is doing. Many children don't get that. And so what happens is they will do things to get attention. It is to be seen, it is to be heard, it is to be, for people to say, I'm okay. The danger of getting that on social media or on the internet is that some of the attention may be positive and it may be genuine, but a lot of it's negative. And so when you put yourself out there, you're going to get positive and negative attention, especially when you put your body out there. And most people can't handle that, because what they really want is they want admiration. And some people are not really hating. Some people are genuinely expressing what they don't like, and they may not like you. And so if you can't handle that, and most people can't, it's not good, I don't think, to be on the internet for affirmation. And that's what a lot of people are on the internet for. I find myself, when I see people posting things, I will like the post, even though I may have an issue with the post. I may, because it may be something that I wouldn't do. Like a lot of people go online and they sort of lament about their problems. And when I see that, I normally just immediately turn away from that video, because I wouldn't do that. First of all, if I got a problem, I got to lament with my God, or I've got to lament with a close family member or friend, and not on the internet, because I feel that when people do that, what they really are looking for is attention. And I was just telling my daughter about this sidebar, that I went online, and I don't do this. The only personal social media that I have is Facebook. I was on there and I clicked on a video of someone, and she basically was lamenting about people checking on her and checking in with her, and how important that is. And I could respect that, because I get it. Even though I wouldn't do that, I could respect it. Clicked on another video. No, I would never click on this person's video, because I know this person is younger, and I know that she is going to do the same thing. She's always online. She's crying. She's talking about a problem. And sure enough, she was saying almost the same thing. And I just had an aha moment, a spiritual moment. I thought, this is why God wanted us to have families. Because if I am dealing with myself and I have a lot of stuff going on, I can only deal with myself. I can only handle my own life. Not that I don't care about others, and I'm always trying to make sure that I intentionally make the effort to pour out to other people. But the reality is, if I'm working on myself and I'm dealing with all my issues, then it's exhausting to deal with mine and then try to deal with somebody else's. And so that's why it's so important for us to try to create beautiful families so that we do have a group of people where we are nurturing each other and we're supporting each other in different ways. Because to me, it seems unreasonable for somebody to for me to have all my problems and then I got to take care of somebody else's. Or I have to even, and like I said, it may be, checking in may not seem like a lot, but sometimes you're so overwhelmed and people would never know that because I'm not gonna get online and cry. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not. But some people would do that. And it just, I don't know, sidebar just hit me. And so we got to start that. We got to start helping our girls. It ties into, we got to affirm our girls in a way that's positive and give them opportunities to express more than just physical beauty, but express their intelligence, their critical thinking skills, their creative skills, their speaking skills. We just have to find a way to do more of that. And I'm working on that. I'm a full-time educator, but I'm just thinking when I retire, like, what, I got to do something. I got to use some time to do something like that, because that's part of the problem where when I look online and I see a young woman, unfortunately, she's usually showing her body, shaking her behind. And while there's a time and place for everything, if that's all younger girls see, they'll believe that that's what a girl is supposed to do. That's what a woman is supposed to do. And that's not all we are. We are more than bodies. We are mind. We are spirit. We have a soul. And if all we're doing is we're fixated on just the body and we neglect the mind and we neglect nurturing the heart, we can never be whole. We will always be broken. And we have to teach that to our young girls, how critical it is for them not just to fixate on physical beauty, because physical beauty is like a rose. It will wither. It may look beautiful. We got some beautiful flowers in the house. My daughter makes sure that the house is blessed with beautiful flowers. This time I'm looking at the arrangement. They're roses. They're these beautiful, bright sunflowers. I mean, the gold is so gold, and the center part is just beautiful sunflowers. But those flowers, I don't know how long they'll last. I say maybe 2 weeks, because we keep ours a little extra time. But beautiful flowers, they will wither away. And we're like that, and we need more than our bodies. We need to learn how to use our mind, our creative energy. And we got to teach that to girls, because when you put your body out there, that's all people see. That's all people are going to want. And here's the thing. Because of our music, so much of in our music and in our other imagery media like movies, women have been objectified. They have often been portrayed as just mere sexual objects. And we know what happens when you objectify a human being. They become just like objects. You use them. Then when you finish using them, you discard them. You put them down. And that feeling of being used like that is detrimental to your spiritual and your emotional and your mental health. And that's what happens when people go online and that's all they do. They just put their bodies out there. And people, yes, may find them attractive or find their bodies attractive, but that's all they see. And that's all they really want. And is it worth the money when you're so much more than that? Is everything, there's an old scripture, and I know you've heard it before. What does it profit a man? Or you could insert woman there. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and to lose his soul? What does it profit a woman to gain the whole world and to lose her soul? And women are not even, a lot of times they're not even getting anything out of it. So let's talk about some of the risks. If you're willing to sell your body you have a higher risk of so many problems. Number one, just the mere danger of being assaulted, because unfortunately, that is how some people find pleasure, in hurting women. And she says that the man that Brooke George says that the man attacked her. She grabbed the butcher knife and she tried to defend herself. And we don't know what he was trying to do, but let's just say it was something really perverted, because that's the reputation right now. There's this rumor going on that Dubai is a place where women will go and allow themselves to participate in some very filthy and perverted and deviant sexual acts in order to get money. And so maybe she went over there and she wasn't down with that. She might have been okay with doing some things, but then there's a point where you're not willing to do certain things. And those things can be very painful to the body. They can put you at a higher risk of disease and cancer and sexually transmitted, all kinds of problems. Anyway, she didn't want to participate, whatever it was. And let's say he turned up, he got angry, he attacked her. That happens a lot. And that's what happens. We got to warn our girls. That's what happens when you put yourself in that kind of situation. She didn't really know this man. She met this man online. You meet people, you don't really know them, you're not around them online, so you can't really feel their energy. And then you want to be careful about being in the presence of people you don't know, and it's not public and it's not safe. She's in a private setting. And in her case, she was able to defend herself, but many women cannot, and they get killed. Is money really worth your life? Is, let's say, even $100,000 a man was going to get, is it really worth risking your life? And if you're dead because you've been assaulted and attacked and you've been beaten all up, is the money worth it? And the answer is no. Again, when you sell your body, you're putting yourself at a higher risk of assault, of injuries, death. Then you have the issue of sexually transmitted diseases, which happens quite a bit. People, some of these diseases have cures and some of them do not. And then you put yourself in a situation where you're not able to fight off an attacker. Now, let's say you did it voluntarily. That's one thing, but that's risky too. But let's say you didn't. Now you're facing your body being hurt, and long term, you got to deal with a disease that there's no cure for. And we got to teach our girls this. We have to teach them what happens when you get HIV and AIDS. What happens when you get syphilis? What happens when you get herpes? We have to show our girls and teach them, because it's not worth it. The money is not worth it. You'd make more money long term and be happier and healthier if you became a pharmacist, if you became a teacher, if you became a doctor, if you became a nurse, if you became an accountant, if you became a politician. You would be so much more healthy when you talk about the mind and the body than you selling your body online in plain sight. Then there's the issue of, there's a rumor that some young social media influencer needed some money, or she might have gone to Dubai to participate in one of these, I'm just going to say evil escapades. And she went over there, and there's rumors that she didn't take any pictures. She didn't tell him, she didn't show too much. And she might have allowed herself to be degraded and used in that way for money. So in some cases, when they go over here to these foreign countries and they have sold their bodies online, when they get over there, they're expected to participate in some really dark stuff. It's some sick and dark stuff that I'm hearing. Now, I want to be fair. I have heard a lot of good things about Dubai. In fact, I wanted to visit Dubai. Now, because of this case, I'm like, whoa, now I've had the second thoughts. But most people have said it's a beautiful place. They didn't have a problem. This is a part of the sort of underworld, that this thing where people go over there and they have some really sick stuff done to them, and it is vile. Is that worth it? Not only the health risk, the life risk, but the memory. Okay, let's say you did it, you survived it, but you've got the memory that you let someone do the dirtiest, most degrading thing to you, and you did it for money. Money that's going to be consumed very fast. Is it really worth it? I say the answer is a resounding no. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And again, you get the money, you come back if you do survive it, but then you've got the memory of it. And how do you reconcile that memory? And and then some people are joking about, oh, I would do it for money, I would do it. No, you are worth more than that. And this is another thing we have to teach our girls. We have to find a way to teach our girls their self-worth. And you got to understand, their self-worth is not going to be measured by man in the same way it's going to be measured by God. So you have to teach them that too. Because some men, they'll say, well, you're not worth it. You're not worth my time. You're not worth my attention. You're not worth my respect. Some men will have that. And you have to help them to understand that's okay. That's their idea. But let me tell you what I know. Not what I think, not what I heard, what I know. When you understand who you are as a child of the Most High God, you will navigate through life and have a level of self-respect that no human being can give you. And it does not matter how people see you. Everybody's going to determine if you look a certain way, or you have a certain body, or you don't have this, or you don't have that. Everybody got their own price tag that they're going to put on you. But to God, to the Most High God, you're priceless. You're deserving of respect. You're deserving of unconditional love. You're deserving of the best that life has to offer. You're not going to get that from anybody else but the Lord. That's why you need Him. That's why you must need Him, because people, if you let them, they will try to convince you you're less than. They will try to make you feel like you're not worthy, you don't deserve this, or you can't get this, or you can't do that. That's human nature. And there's no need in trying to change their minds, because as long as you know that you know that you know that God made you, and remember, I've said this before, love does not come from people, it comes from God through people. When you know that God loves you, you just won't, your whole life changes. And if I had gotten this when I was very young, I could have avoided so much pain. I still have nightmares about things. I still have, some people say don't have regret. I'm over 60. I have regret. Like some people say, well, you know what? I don't regret anything. No, I have some regret. Okay. I wish I had not wasted my time doing certain things. I wish not. I wish not that I had allowed myself to participate and deal with certain people. Those things I deeply regret. Am I healed from those memories? I would like to say yes, but sometimes those flashbacks come, and I got to work to stop them, and they're not good. And that's what you don't want to do. But when you teach children their worth, not according to man, see, because man is very limiting. If you don't look a certain way, there's a very narrow and very limited idea of what is beautiful or who is worthy, or and men will tell you that. This is a new thing now. They're telling you, well, you're not worth it. You're not, I don't want, you don't have a body, you don't have a look, so you gotta understand with that if girls don't know that they are loved unconditionally by God and they are worthy, and it's okay if men don't think so. It's okay. They don't have to talk about men. They don't have to be mad about that. They don't have to be try to change anybody's mind. Live and let live. But you will walk around and you will navigate in an entirely different way when you know that who you are, and that is a child of the Most High God. We must teach that to our girls. God did not just make you body. Again, He gave you a mind. He gave you a brain. He gave you a heart. He gave you spirit. All of these things must be nurtured, and they make up who you really are. And so you got to be careful, because you got girls online and then they're just dying. I don't know if I mentioned it in this episode. Maybe it was another episode. I can't remember, Lord. But it was a girl. There are many social media influencers have been killed found dead, again, because again, they're selling their bodies. It's a form of prostitution. And it's hard, I have to call a spade a spade. And I don't say it with condemnation. I'm very saddened when I see beautiful women have to feel like they have to do that. That they have options, but maybe they don't know they have options. But I feel very saddened to see that that's all they're putting out into the world. And I understand how imagery and media is very powerful. That's why these social media platforms allow the open prostitution and porn. They allow it because they want to corrupt. They want to influence in a negative way. Look who owns this stuff. And we call it the network. And they don't care about you, and they don't care about me, and they don't care about our children. And so we have to step up, and we got to teach them the truth. Again, as a parent, as a teacher, people will make their own decisions in life. But I do believe when you give them a strong foundation in what is right and what is wholesome, they will make better decisions. They will be able to think clearly and teach them how to critically think. Again, we talked about sexual assault. We've talked about disease. We've talked about death. We've talked about mental illness, because you cannot do this in front of everybody and then at some point people are going to treat you like what you've put out. You put out trash. They're going to treat you like trash. And that can take a toll on you mentally and spiritually and emotionally. And you put yourself out there. And that's kind of what Miss George did. And I'm not saying that she deserves what happened to her. I pray to God that she is able to get out of this situation, that there's grace and mercy shown upon her. At the same time, she put herself in a heightened, risky situation. And that's why I'm talking about this, because we've got to learn the spiritual lessons from this and teach our girls don't do this. Y'all, let me just say this. You probably never ever, there are exceptions to the rules, but you're probably not going to find love online. If you're online and you're on these social media platforms and you're on dating apps, it is very unlikely that you will find true love. Now, for some people, I know a few people where it did happen. They seem to have pretty healthy relationships, but they're in the extreme minority. When you meet these people and all they see is your body, and then remember, they're going through the computer, so you can't feel their energy, you can't see their expressions. You don't know if their identity is even their identity, because you don't know if they've created an identity. Now, with all of the technology that exists, you can create so much fakeness. Fakeness is the new way. That's the new real, is the fake. And so you're putting yourself at risk, because there are people and they're going online intentionally looking for nothing else but your body. And now that you've put it on display, that's what they're going to go after. And to be desired, but then at the same time, they don't respect you. They just want to use your body. That's not good. And there is a lot of issues with that. And at some point you may be aware of that. And then you know what? And this is another thing. You can only use your body for so long, because the body ages, it changes. Even if you're in good shape, you could be, age well. I'm not aging that well, but some people do. And it's fine, but how long do you want to use your body? How long can you use it? I remember when I grew up in the projects. We lived in the projects, and there was a lady, and at first I didn't know what she was, but I started to figure things out as I got older. She was someone that basically sold her body, and people would come in and out of her apartment. Sometimes she would come out on the porch. She would be a little flamboyant and loud and festive, and she'd kind of be dancing or whatever. This is the irony of it all. My mother, when she moved out of that complex, she moved into another complex, and then my late sister also moved into that complex, and her next door neighbor was this former prostitute, this lady. That lady had become old. She had become regretful. She had become quiet. She could no longer use her body the way she did. It was ravaged because she had gone through so much. That lifestyle where you're just using your body and that's what you do is for as long as you can do it, is very hard on it. And there are so many pains and so many things you have to deal with. And then you're not only dealing with the physical part of doing that, but then you're also dealing with the mental and spiritual part, because people were with you just to use you. They didn't love you. They didn't care about you when you were sick. They didn't make you a bowl of soup. They didn't go buy you a blanket. Like, they just used your body because they could. And that has to be, and that's a horrible feeling. That's a horrible feeling. Even if you're not a prostitute and you were just in a relationship and you find out, dang, I was with this dude, he didn't even love me. He just used me. Used whatever he could. That is an awful feeling to have. And that's what happens when you put yourself out there. And we have to teach our young women it is not worth it. They'd be so far better off by going to school and learning a trade or learning a skill, and then being able to make their money honestly and righteously. And there's something about that when you can just go to bed at night, and I'm talking about sleep well. When you have lived a righteous life and a noble life, and you don't have to be perfect. We know that no man is perfect. We all fall short. We all have skeletons. Some people got the graveyard. We all have things that we struggle with. But when you are striving to do the right things and you are helping others through a profession, it's just a beautiful feeling that you have inside, and that you can cherish, and you can hold your head up high. And that's what we got to teach our young girls. I want to end with some wisdom taken from the Holy Bible in the book of Proverbs. In chapter 31, a king talks about the righteous and noble woman, mainly as a wife. And there's some lessons we can learn there, that there are some things that we can do to be pleasing. I think that wisdom is worth emulating and considering. And I want to end with the last two verses of chapter 31 of Proverbs. And if you get a chance, every year, I didn't do it this summer, but normally during the summer, I read an entire book from the Holy Bible. Just kind of study it. You don't want to read it. You want to study it. You want to critically analyze it. Remember, it is the misuse of the Bible that has caused problems. But if you study the scriptures and you analyze them and you extract the life lessons and the principles, and you ask yourself, how can I apply these to my life? It could be a very powerful book. And so I want to read the last two verses that I think are powerful, and it's something we need to teach our young women. Yes, they are beautiful, and it's good to try to look the best you can look physically if you can. However, you have to teach them that that's not all they are. They're not just physically beautiful. You can focus on fixing your hair, but you cannot neglect fixing your head. It's wonderful to have a good body, but you also want to make sure you have a good heart. It's wonderful to celebrate people for how unique and special they are. But if you're not nurturing the spirit, then nothing else is going to matter. Because, bad thought therapy, the number one therapy for bad thoughts, is healing your thoughts. You must deal in changing your life. You must deal with what's in your head, and not just your hair, and not just makeup, and not just clothing. And we have reduced being a woman or being an attractive woman to just that. Nothing else but just that. And that is gotten us in a lot of trouble. And now you got people, it's so bad that when they're trying to emulate womanhood, that's what they think they think that's all it is. So that's why they dress up. They don't realize that being a woman is so much more than that. Especially being a woman and you're a mother, or you're a mother and a wife, you're a professional. There's so much more to that. But here are some powerful words from some ancient wisdom that I think is very appropriate right now. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works ring her praise at the city gate. We have to be more than just beautiful human beings. God wants us to nurture the heart and the mind. Are we kind? Are we helping people? Are we giving? Are we speaking words to encourage and to inspire? That's a part of being a beautiful woman too. If you put your body, we got to teach our babies. We got to, because it's a very painful situation. And while I'm talking about this person, Miss George, there are so many other women who have died trying to sell their bodies online. So they have died. Some of them survived assaults and disease. But if we don't get a grasp of this, it's going to get worse before it gets better. We got to teach our children it's so much more than that. And there's another part that I didn't address, and that is the vanity of it all. You know, beauty is fleeting, just the vanity where you're just constantly looking in the mirror and looking at yourself, and how that affects your mind, your mental health, when the only person you're absorbed with is yourself. And we're not meant to do that. We're meant to do so much more than just be absorbed in ourselves, that we're supposed to be a part. Really, we're supposed to be interdependent upon helping each other and working with each other. But that self-absorption and that level of narcissism is unhealthy, and it prevents people from really being able to develop and use all the gifts that God has given them. And it's very sad when I see this happening with so many young women. So, y'all, I hope this episode is going to make some of you think. Again, I mainly targeted people who have girls or who teach girls or work or mentor for girls. Of course, this can apply to anybody. Anybody can listen. And I pray that this episode in some way empowered you and helped you. Peace and abundant blessings. Again, thank you for listening and learning with Bad Thought Therapy. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my budding YouTube channel and also like this video. Thank you and have a beautiful day.